Animal Crossing is a great game, but it would be truly awesome if I could play it with a bunch of numbers, graphs, and letters all over my screen. Nice. Okay, now if only I had the ability to make a black box appear that obscures my entire vision. Perfect. Debug menus are extremely common in video games, and are practically a necessity during development of a sizable game. The purpose of these menus is to of course assist in removing bugs from the game, and they mainly give developers important information about the state of the game at any given moment, vastly speeding up development. For example, numbers or graphs are often included in debug menus to track memory and CPU usage to ensure nothing done in the game ends up going beyond the hardware's capabilities. Further, things like map or level selects are often included with debug menus, which make it easier for developers to play certain parts without actually having to spend the time playing through the entire game over and over. While these debug menus are incredibly common, it is somewhat uncommon for a debug menu to be left in the game for an actual player to access. Most of the time, debug menus are found in video games by modifying the game files or by setting certain flags that force the game to load the menu when you boot it up. But some developers choose to leave their debug menus in their games for fans to access as well. This was most recently done in Sonic Superstars, released just a couple weeks before this video's recording date. In this game, the debug menu can be accessed by inputting a specific controller input as an Easter egg. But to call this a debug menu is being incredibly generous, since this is basically just a glorified level select. Nevertheless, the ability to access this menu is still there for players to find through that special button combination. And it turns out Animal Crossing did something similar over 20 years prior by including a full debug menu in their game accessible by inputting a specific button combination on a controller. So, on a standard North American copy of the game, inserting a second controller into your GameCube and inputting a specific button combination will actually cause the debug menu to show up on stock vanilla hardware. This combination is L plus R plus Z, D up, C down, C up, D down, D left, C right, D right, A and B, and then finally start. If input correctly, a small letter D will show up in the top right of your screen, indicating that you're successfully in debug mode. In this mode, you can see various information about your game state by pressing buttons on your second controller. This includes the current date and time, your current player coordinates, and a bunch of other technical values. The build date of the game, along with CPU and memory usage graphs, also appear on startup and during KK Slider's Saturday Credits performance. It isn't all just numbers and dates though, as being in debug mode will also change gameplay in various ways. First, arrows will appear above your player pointing to special objects such as balloon presents or special NPCs like Gulliver. And, while in debug mode, resetting the game will not cause Mr. Rossetti to trigger at all. I guess the developers didn't really want to hear his rants when testing the game over and over, so he's effectively removed entirely if you play in debug mode. Next, under normal conditions, if you force the game to crash by doing various glitches, the game will usually recognize something is wrong and immediately reset the game. But in debug mode, a special crash handler will show up instead, giving you more information about what went wrong. Also, pressing Z at any time will bring up this black box which covers most of your screen. You can resize this box with your control stick, and this is actually a debugging console log which spits out error information if anything in your game isn't reporting accurately. And finally, playing NES or Famicom Disk System games while in debug mode will give you enhanced control over the emulation. You can pause any game with L plus R, speed up or slow down the emulation with the C stick, and even toggle turbo buttons for A and B. Anyways, you're free to mess around with this debug mode if you'd like, but it actually doesn't allow for anything too crazy. However, Animal Crossing actually does have a second debug mode that opens up the game a lot more. So, time for round 2. This second debug mode is essentially a god mode for this game. You get all the perks of the first debug mode, plus the addition of spawning practically any item in the game, controlling the game speed, and even opening up an in-game hex editor where you can edit memory values of the game in real time. Needless to say, there are insane possibilities with this. But as you probably guessed, the only caveat here is that this second debug mode is not accessible in the vanilla game. There are currently no discovered button combinations or codes to unlock this second debug menu, making it exclusive to things like action replay hacks. Behind the scenes, this second debug mode is activated by simply setting a certain ID flag in the files to hexadecimal 99. This is just a single byte change and is actually very easy to do yourself with a hex editor. But again, there's unfortunately no way to set this ID on a vanilla console. At least, not yet. This may be a bit of an early hint at a future project of mine, so all I'll say for now is there is potential to get this working on stock hardware. Granted, this is a pretty early foreshadow, but I hope you'll allow me to be a little bit cheeky here while I cook up this future project. Anyways, if you theoretically had access to this second debug mode, you're again able to access this special item spawner where you can spawn practically any item in the game. There are also special shortcuts that control your money at will, gives you infinite bell bags, and immediately gives you one of each tool. And with the inclusion of an in-game memory editor, there's a lot of unexplored possibilities. If you're curious on more information about this debug menu, I suggest checking out the cutting room floor, which has detailed information on most aspects of these debug menus. But we're not done yet. I mentioned that debug menus often come in tandem with level selects to speed up development, and it turns out Animal Crossing is no different. Not only are there 2 debug modes left in the game, but there's also a special player and level select menu, as well as an entire debugger filer mode dedicated to the NES games. But again, similar to the second debug menu, accessing these requires flag modification, which is not possible on stock hardware. Yet. These menus are still very interesting though, especially the player select. By default, the menu looks like this. If you've watched my video on how paying off your debt warps you to the beta map, you might recall how I mentioned buggy villager names were left untranslated from Japanese and thus convert to incorrect characters in the English release. This is the same case here, and converting this into English gives us a much more readable menu. Also in that video, I mentioned that there are over 50 beta maps left in the game files, and this level select menu is how you access these other maps. A lot of these maps are just basic replicas of what you see in the base game, but others are indeed a bit colorful. These beta maps actually look slightly different in the original Japanese N64 game, but many aspects of these maps got corrupted or bugged out when porting to the North American GameCube version. Speaking of the original N64 game, you might have noticed this text in the debug modes reading Zelda_Malak. This stands for Zelda Memory Allocation and actually refers to a function from Ocarina of Time, and appears here since Animal Crossing is built with the same engine and shares a surprising amount of the same code structure with that game. Anyways, the other player select screen simply allows you to pick between the player data you have on file, and the NES filer screen essentially allows you to play the NES games on the disc without having to deal with all the console furniture nonsense. Again, these are all pretty basic debug functionalities to speed up game development, but it is super cool that these are left in the game to some extent for players to explore. Hopefully you found these debug leftovers interesting or learned something new about them, even if a lot of this information has been published before. I just think the fact that these are left in the game and one of them can be accessed with a hidden button combination is pretty cool. In-depth dives on the debug menu and the discovery of the button combination can all be credited to James Chambers, and I'll link to his in-depth blog below. And before the end of this video, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the continued support on this channel. A lot more people have watched my videos than I thought would ever be possible, so truly thank you all for watching. I hope you all continue to look forward to future videos and projects of mine. Until next time.